Hey everybody, it's me, Ned. Welcome to my first ever combined wine and car review. I know you may be saying, what the hell are you thinking? That's dumb and or crazy or just a terrible idea, but well, hear me out. Also, all the driving portions happened before the wine drinking. Anyway, so I've been in the wine business since I was 18, and I work with a lot of, like kind of crazy handmade wines, things that are like people make them because they're driven by passion. And it's sometimes kind of hard to explain to people that aren't wine experts, like the particulars, the details of why things are what they are and why they taste the way they taste. So I try to make a lot of unusual analogies to make things more real. I often describe wines as cars, because I'm also really into cars. I've been working on this WRX for 3 years, and I'm never going to call it finished, but it's like at a point now where it's sort of like it is the vision that I wanted it to be. And so it's just been the last 3 weeks that the new motor has been like broken in, tuned, everything is sort of working, the way it should be. It's like, anyway. So it created the question though then of like, if this car was a wine, what wine would it be going the other way around? So I put a lot of thought into it, and I figured out what wine, but it's kind of a rare wine and I couldn't get that wine for a while. Finally, I got my hands on some of it. So this finally is the explanation. So Frank Cornelissen's Munjebel. So now I will explain why these two things, why this car and this wine are so similar that if this car was a wine, it would be this. If this wine was a car, it would be this. So I'll start with the wine. So Frank Cornelissen, this is from Mount Etna in Sicily. He's a Belgian expat. He worked in the wine business in Belgium. He was on a trip to Sicily, had a wine from Mount Etna, and he just had this epiphany, like struck by a bolt of lightning. He was like, oh my God, I need to sell everything in Belgium, drop everything, move to Sicily, go to Mount Etna, and teach myself how to make wine and like express this place. He went to Mount Etna, found the winery and stuff, and was like, this is one of the greatest wine terroirs I've ever seen in my life, and nobody is appreciating it right now. Mount Etna, there used to be a ton of farming and winemaking on the mountain. It's a live volcano. The top of the mountain is like 6,000 something feet above sea level. It erupts periodically and destroys things on the mountain. It's like crazy volcano island paradise in the Mediterranean. Like it's subtropical. It's right off the coast of Africa. So depending on where you are on the mountain with the elevation, you can grow anything. And the soil is this incredibly rich black. It's just volcanic, like pumice and sand and stuff. So anyway, all the people that had been on the mountain like 100, 200 years ago, when industrial farming came in, they all left, because it's hard to farm with tractors and mechanically on a live volcano. Nothing is flat. So everybody left, and they left behind all these terraced vineyards with super old vines that were incredible. So people, obviously there are people there who knew it was really special, but people from the rest of the world sort of started rediscovering Mount Etna like 20 years ago. That was around when Frank came to Sicily and went to Mount Etna and was blown away and started buying vineyards. And when I say old vines, I mean like 80, 90, 100, 110, 120-year-old vines, bush vines, like no training up on trellises and stuff, on terraces on the side of Etna. So this Munjebel, here, I'll come back over, hold it in front of the camera again. You can see this is, like a representation of Mount Etna, Munjebel, 2017, Azienda Agricola, Frank Cornelissen. This is 100% Norello Mascalese. That's the grape variety that they predominantly grow here. There's a lot of other things, but that's what he feels is the best and what there is a lot of. So this is particular old vine vineyards, hand harvested, wild fermented, made without any additives, without any sulfur, without any enzymes or anything. And it's really been, so like he went to Etna and he had this vision of like, this mountain is incredible. I have seen it. I want to share this with the rest of the world. And he felt like he had a responsibility to do that. So he's trying really to make wines that taste like volcanic rock, like that really taste like the mountain. It's pretty crazy. The wines are incredible. I went and visited him like 3 years ago and ran up and down Mount Etna and all around and stuff, and it was crazy. So anyway, he moved to Etna and he basically taught himself how to make wine. He made a lot of mistakes. It was a real like learning through doing, you know, like suffering, just putting himself out there, putting his heart and soul and everything into the mountain. And, you know, he really, like, he learned. It was a long iterative evolutionary process of learning how to make wines here and like figuring out how to really express his vision. And I think he's done it now. All right, I'll get to drinking the wine in a second, but now a little bit about the car. So, and why it's the same or similar thing. This is a 2002 Subaru WRX here. I'm gonna come get you, and we're gonna do a walk around of this car. Not that there's really anything to look at. There's pretty much nothing on the outside to give away what it is. But it's a 2002 WRX, a bug eye, the first year that they sold the WRX in America. I bought it 3 years ago. It had 183,000 miles on it. Came from down south. I'm in Maine, so it's very hard to find old Subarus that don't have rust on them. This had zero rust. My plan actually was to keep it stock. It ran and drove great. I didn't keep it stock. I immediately was like, man, this car was made to compete in motorsports. Like, this car has competed in probably this type of car, the WRX, has competed in every single different type of motorsports that I think you can compete a factory production car in, either by Subaru or different, you know, privateers. It definitely, like the bones of the car, the chassis is a compact sedan, but there were some really passionate Japanese engineers that put a lot of time and thought into making this thing a really awesome competitive race car. I can hear a Subaru WRX actually driving by right now, that unequal length header, which brings me to, you can hear that distinctive rumble. Anyway, it brings me to like the things about this car. So I immediately started, I was like, man, Subaru engineers put a lot of thought into making it faster and more of a performance car. But then there were compromises made to mass produce it. And I was like, I want it to more be like about going fast and being like a sharp tool for driving and getting from point A to point B really fast, like what they originally intended it to be in the World Rally competition. Subaru won the WRC, I don't even know how many times, 4, something like that, with Colin McRae and the WRX through the late 90s, early 2000s. So I immediately started changing things. I took off the restrictive factory downpipe, put an open downpipe on it, put a larger exhaust to move more, make it easier for the turbo to move more air. Still has a catalytic converter because I try not to, kill myself or other people. It has an equal length header, so it doesn't have the Subaru rumble, but it smooths out the exhaust pulses to the turbine so that the turbine spools faster. Anyway, I did that stuff. And then pretty quickly I was like, boy, I could bolt a bigger motor from an STI into it. And then I found one for really cheap that was local. So I got that and I swapped that in. And I was like, well, if I'm doing that, I might as well put a bigger turbocharger on it. So I did. But then that made too much power and the transmission blew up. And I was like, well, I need to get a new transmission. I should get a really good one. So I got one from Japan, from a Japanese market STI Spec C, like factory sort of rally car. It's a 6-speed, and I got the entire drivetrain. So limited slip differentials, front, rear, and center. So each wheel gets 25% of the engine's power. Brembo brakes, aluminum control arms, larger not sway bars, sway bars? Yeah, sway bars, larger STI sway bars. STI Spec C wheels, high performance BF Goodrich Sport Comp 2 tires. Got that all going, got that on the road. That was crazy. The car was insanely fast. And then one of the intake cams seized. So then I said, well, I ought to just build a new motor. Got a forged bottom end from IAG, a company that just makes high performance Subaru engines down in Baltimore. Got a bigger ceramic ball bearing turbo from Blauch. It's a Dom 1.5 XTR for those of you that want to know. Brian Crauer camshafts, IDR 1050cc injectors, larger Mishimoto radiator, gigantic Hyperflow top mount, intercooler, IAG air oil separator. I don't know. I mean, okay, the only original mechanical things left on the entire car are the factory intake manifold and throttle body, the wiring harness, which I'm about to replace with a brand new factory wiring harness, and the power steering pump. That's it. Everything else is all like high performance Subaru race car parts, aftermarket stuff from Grimspeed, IAG, Blauch Turbo, HKS, that's the header manufacturer, stuff like that. So it makes something somewhere between 430, 450 horsepower at the crank. And everybody's like, who's that hooligan in that dilapidated, really loud car? Is what it seems like. This is what it does. It's very fast. It's a lot of fun. It scares people. And one of the things I love about it is that it basically looks totally stock. Like it's still got peeling clear coat. You know, if you don't know that this car didn't come with Brembo brakes, and the Brembo calipers are, you know, a little beat up looking anyway. So, you know, you just, unless you really, really know what you're looking for, no one realizes that this thing makes as much power as like a new Corvette. I'm taking it to a road course 2 weeks from now. Got to take it to a drag strip and see just how fast it actually is, but like, it's very quick. So now what the wine actually tastes like, and more the two of them together, you know. So the car is me completely changing everything and evolving it to reflect my vision of it, my like understanding and feeling of what the engineers intended and sort of like the soul of the car, and reflecting myself and doing it through like an iterative process of learning and breaking things and stuff and figuring it out, and you know, super late nights pulling things apart, and a lot of help from other people like Matt Miner and Duval's Service in South Portland, which I could not have done this without. They did all the heavy lifting. And this wine, the Munjebel, which, you know, is Frank's vision. It's a reflection of him and his determination and passion and how much time and effort he has put into, you know, figuring this out and like sacrificing and taking risks and learning from all of it and sticking with his vision and his passion. It smells kind of smoky, kind of smells like a volcano, like in an awesome way. It smells like volcano paradise. It's very ripe. Like black currant, black raspberry, cedar. Like there's a little bit of like a spicy, piney kind of thing. Smoky. Smells a little bit like roasted. There's a lot of fruit, but it's like, wow. Man, that's crazy. It's 15% alcohol, and it doesn't, you don't realize it, like the alcohol doesn't hit you in the face, but it's just, everything about the wine is like big and raw. It's definitely like an aggressive, like intense, visceral experience. And that's another thing, like the car is very visceral. You feel everything from the road, like you feel the motor, you feel the like the lopey like vibration of the motor because of the cams, you hear it because it's so loud, you hear the turbo whine, you hear the ball bearings spinning down after you turn the car off. It's a really intense visceral experience, and this wine is a really intense visceral, like sort of grabs you by, choose your body part that it grabs you by, but it grabs you by it, and you're like, wow, holy crap, this is real, really real. It's so smooth though. Like it's big and it lingers for a long time. It's spicy. It's this like dark, gritty, like I've eaten a fair amount of dirt up on Mount Etna. Like I went around to like different vineyards that Frank farms and ate dirt in them because I'm a wine guy. And this has that same like really vital, dark, gritty sort of feel and texture as the dirt on Mount Etna. It's a very raw, real, alive, in-your-face kind of wine, and it's a raw, alive, in-your-face car. Like you can't ever just like cruise around and like forget and zone out in this car because it's so intense and, you know, loud. But this is a really thoughtful, intellectual, interesting wine. Like, you know, Frank has basically had to teach himself like chemical biology and stuff in order to make this wine. It's so layered, there's so much stuff going on, and it's a really thoughtful expression of this place, like the climate and the soul of it. And the car is the same thing. You know, all the changes that I've made to it, I mean, from the engineering of those like old men in Japan, you know, 20 plus years ago, down through all the people that I worked with and the super passionate companies that produced the parts on it, like IAG and HKS and Blauch Turbo and stuff. And then all the changes that I made to sort of like have all those parts work together and be in tune with each other. It's a really visceral, raw experience, but there's a ton of underlying intellectual thought and science behind both this wine and the car, which I think is really cool, that it's like, it's a blend of like raw passion and like intensity and drive, and then it's like, it's so primal, and then at the same time, like, it's a very, very precise, thoughtful, like crazy, extreme exercise of engineering and science to make these things. I got to drink this quick before it gets warm in the sun. It's warming up. It's actually a little bit more like meaty now. Like when I was here, we spent a lot of time eating like grilled skirt steak and stuff like that. That was just a little bit bloody, but like charred and smoky, and it totally has that sort of character right now. It's like because there's good acidity here in the wine too, and so you get that like slightly bloody acid kind of thing going on. It's a treat. It's a beautiful wine. It really is like a legitimately beautiful goddamn wine. Yeah, okay, so crazy, unassuming looking, turbo all-wheel drive, crazy car, and this product of like, I mean, on Frank's part, 20-ish years, but when you look at everybody else on the mountain and those 100-year-old vineyards and those terraces that have been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, there's a lot of history and past and passion in this wine. But both super thoughtful, really intense, in your face expressions of like particular visions, really driven by passion. So yeah, that's why I think if this wine was a car, it would be this. If this car was a wine, it would be the Munjebel. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't drink and drive. Wait, yeah, you should drive and then drink. Don't drink and then drive. The one is okay, not the other. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.